Welcome back, Mere Mortalites, to another edition of the Mere Mortals book reviews, and I've got a bit of a summary learnings. It's going to be a big one. We got the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Now I have 30, that's right, 30 bad boy notes that I've put down on here that at least I would like to talk about or discuss. Given that it's 30, I want to blitz through them as much as I can. But I hold no promises, so stay tuned for it. As usual with these, I've done the book review for the book. Go check that out if you want to or haven't picked it up just yet. And in this session, what I like to do is just go through where I've noted down the important pieces, the call outs, something that I want to talk about or refer to. And so that's what we're going to do. The first one I want to be talking about here is in the preface, man. It started early. And I've got a note here to know and operate it. And the quote goes, by mastering the 48 laws in this book, you spare others the pain that comes from bungling with power. By playing with fire without knowing its properties, if the game of power is inescapable, better to be an artist than a denier or a bungler. So to know and operate it. I talked about this in the book review as well. I think this highlights it really well in that not all of these laws you might operate or want to use them, but better to know them and spot them than to not know them at all. So I think that was a great way to actually preface it or begin that particular piece. Let's go to the next one that I've noted. The next one, Story of Borgia, avoid all means. So I've got here that this law involves two rules, and this is already on law 1, which is observe the master. The law involves two rules that you must realize. First, you can inadvertently outshine a master by simply being yourself. And there are masters who are more insecure than others, monstrously insecure. You may naturally outshine them by your charm and grace. And in this particular one, there was a big piece of the story around Borgia, however you pronounce it. But this law or the rules within it, I think it's the reason I call it out is that even by just being yourself, you may outshine the master just by your natural, either charismatic, aggressive, defensive type of individual. You might insult them or outshine them. And the call out there was the individual that you might interact with, you might or have to change the way that you yourself operate in your normal sense. AKA, you have to either throttle down, throttle up, throttle differently to not outshine the master. And it isn't just enough to, hey, just be yourself. Because sometimes being yourself will, anyways, outshine the master. And you've got to be wary where exactly you want or not to do that. The third note that I took down here was image plus authority. Wow, called about this in the book review, but I wanted to just talk about it here. The way that it's broken down in this particular book, just in the learnings for the image and the authority, which is usually the text is in red rather than black, and it's in the shape of whatever is being talked about in that particular call out or I guess information, and the authority as well. It was just so well summarized, so well in terms of its positioning of a breakup, of a reminder. I think sometimes when you're doing learning and you want to go through a particular chapter, sometimes at the very end of it, you might want to take some notes. It's almost served that purpose where it was a slightly different way that you had to take it in, I guess, because it's in an image and you have to read it in a different way. It's in a different color, but it gives you almost like a punctuation, a difference between what you've been doing to what it is that you're going to go to the next law. And I just went, man, that was super helpful to have. I really, really appreciated that extra effort that was put together there by Robert Greene in this book. The next one that I've got noted down here, where you have the clear upper hand. No, if not, yes. Let's see what that means. So this is for law 3, and law 3 is, first to bring that up, is conceal your intentions. Yeah, this one's an interesting one. Use this tactic in the following manner. Hide your intentions not by closing up with the risk of appearing secretive and making people suspicious, but by talking endlessly about your desires and goals, just not your real ones. You will kill 3 birds with 1 stone. You appear friendly, open and trusting. You conceal your intentions, and you send your rivals on time-consuming wild goose chases. Now, this one was an interesting one, right? Where it's like, I generally sit on the aspect of, yeah, I'll be as open as I can and transparent about what I care about, what my priorities are. To some things, maybe like my daughter, there's very little things that I share openly, and I do that for yeah, a good reason. But then this law, the way that it's articulated there is, don't hide your intentions or conceal your intentions by not talking about it, but actually by being really motivated and energetic about what you're talking about and use those as goals, just not your real ones. And I kind of go, that is as good as lying, right? You're just lying. You're not being transparent. You're saying something different to try and lead down someone else down the path. And this is more often so when in some of these laws, it's less, hey, it's less likely that I'm going to take this on personally and be something that I want to apply in my life. But what it might be is something that I want to be spotting in others. And can I see when someone is talking about something that's, they're passionate, but it's maybe something that they're trying to conceal instead. So I just noted it as, be aware. It's probably not a law that I want to try and encourage, but it is something that I want to be spotting. The next one here, it's in law 4, always say less than necessary. And my note is, yes, in part, but more so less for more effect. Let's see, always say less than necessary. When you're trying to impress people with words, the more you say, the more common you appear and the less in control. Even if you're saying something banal, it will seem original if you make it vague, open-ended, and sphinx-like. Powerful people impress and intimidate by saying less. The more you say, the more likely you are to say something foolish. So again, yes, in part, maximum for less. Say less for more effect. Yeah. Always say less is necessary. Yes, I totally. The part here around, yeah, if you're not saying much and then you say something that's open ended and vague, and it makes you mysterious, right? And yes, it is true that powerful people intimidate and impress, but if they don't say too much and then say something, and then it's like, oh wow, the guru has spoken, So I totally agree with the saying less is necessary. In fact, it's just to more effect. The less you talk, the more when you actually talk matters. But I wouldn't say that when you can actually talk, you really need to be vague or open-ended. Again, and maybe this is where I'm finding challenges that the power, the law, if you want to apply to its full extent, you kind of have to do that. And then throw it and use it as you see fit to be the reality for in your life. This next one that I've got here. Now, I didn't even put a note at all, but I think it's in relation to the quote in this law from Leonardo da Vinci. I think I just liked it, right? So I'm going to call it out. Oysters open completely when the moon is full, and when the crab sees one, it throws a piece of stone or seaweed into it, and the oyster cannot close again so that it serves the crab for meat. Such is the fate of him who opens his mouth too much and thereby puts himself at the mercy of the listeners. Leonardo da Vinci. Yeah, I guess said another way, when you open your mouth, you're at the mercy of the listener of something being thrown in. So sometimes you got to keep your mouth shut and protects you. The next one that I've got here is one, not many, fuse. What do I mean by that? This is in Law 5. In the beginning, you must work to establish a reputation for one outstanding quality, whether generosity, honesty, or cunning. This quality sets you apart and gets other people to talk about you. You then make your reputation known to so many people, to as many people as possible, subtly, though. Take care to build slowly and with a firm foundation, and watch as it spreads like wildfire. Look, completely one or more, few, totally agree with this in terms of at the very beginning. Sometimes you might build up the knowledge, within it turns into skill. If you're trying to build a ton load of skills, you're going to find yourself at lesser speed to build them, to become master, become known of them. If you put full effort into one or two of those skills based on all the knowledge that you acquire, you're going to be known much quicker. So I totally agree with that view as well from that law. The next one, and the colors started changing and now going to green, so I started running out of little tabs that I was using. This is in Law 9, and my quote call out here is, yes, actions over words. And this is win through your actions, never through argument. The last bit on the judgment, demonstrate, do not explicate. Demonstrate, motherfuckers, not explicate. Just this law, I loved it. Don't go through the argument, win through actions. There's lots of examples, obviously, in this particular law, but you get it. Go and do the thing. If you're annoyed at someone, If you're battling with someone, if you're finding someone to get aggressive with you and you want to get argumentative, no, go through actions, do the thing. They're not wanting to do something, go do it. It'll just help out way more than even just trying to get into an argument. Law 11. Um, this was interestingly enough, this is one of the parables, a little quotes on the side that I pulled up. I noted, and then law 11, and I noted, be useful and apply your best. You never know. And this one was around the two horses story from Fables from Leo Tolstoy. And very, very quickly, two horses were carrying two loads. The front horse went well, but the rear horse was lazy. The men began to pile the rear horse's load on the front horse. When they had transferred it all, the rear horse found it easy going, and he said to the front horse, toil and sweat. The more you try, the more you have to suffer. When they reached the tavern, the owner said, why should I fodder two horses when I can carry all on one? I had better give the one all of the food at once and cut the throat of the other. At least I shall have the hide. And so he did. So look, be useful and apply your best, because you never know when you're going to be basically put out to the side because you're not needed anymore. And the law for that one was learn to keep people dependent on you. It could be extrapolated another way, just be not dependable, but be specifically special, or always needed, I guess. But if you keep people dependent on you, you're going to be useful. Don't end up being the horse that doesn't take the load, and all of a sudden you're being used for hide. Law 12, an interesting concept. It is true. You also, however, can reduce your sharing too. So that was my little note there. And this is because this law, it's use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. Damn, this is, some people would say like dark. I think it's an honest. This is getting right at the heart of humanity that often we don't talk about. So I think it is an interesting concept. But again, to use selective honesty, it feels too slimy for me. It feels like, no, I'd rather go through full honesty and transparency. Maybe the generosity aspect. Maybe you could talk about whether you use it fully or not, or being selective with that as well. The next one I noted down, or at least my note here, is look beyond your wants and uncover what's in it for them. So what does that mean? For this particular law, 13. Most people never succeed at this because they are completely trapped in their own wants and desires. They start from the assumption that the people they are appealing to have a selfless interest in helping them. They talk as if their needs matter to these people, who probably couldn't care less. Sometimes they refer to larger issues, a great cause, a grand emotion such as love and gratitude. They go for the big picture when simple everyday realities would have much more appeal. What they do not realize is that even the most powerful person is locked inside needs of his own, and that if you make no appeal to his self-interest, he merely sees you as a desperate, or at best, a waste of time. Look beyond your own wants, right, to the wants of others. It is imperative that if you're trying to just fulfill yourself or the things that you need, it will be seen. And for that particular law, or the key to power for that one, is you need to see the wants and the needs for the others as well. And I actually made a secondary note there on the side as well. What about one's own, right? Because another point here was a key step in the process is to understand the other person's psychology. Is he vain? Is he concerned about his reputation or his social standing? Does he have enemies you could help him vanquish? Is he simply motivated by money and power? So as much as Robert called that out in this law, I kind of made a note as well. What about one's own as well, right? And you got to also apply what does one's own psychology look like in its whole applicability, because it is a dance between you and whoever it is that you're having that conversation and interaction with. The next one here that I took note of is the word spy is used here, but the aspect of moving the other party is interesting. So let's see what I mean by that. The French politician Talleyrand was one of the greatest practitioners of his art. He had an uncanny ability to worm secrets out of people in polite conversation. A contemporary of his, Baron de Vitrolles, wrote, wit and grace marks conversation. He possessed the art of concealing his thoughts or his malice beneath a transparent veil of insinuations, words that imply something more than they express. Only when necessary did he inject his own personality. The key here is Talleyrand's ability to suppress himself in the conversation to make others talk endlessly about themselves and inadvertently reveal their intentions and plans. And again, lastly, there's inadvertently revealed themselves and their intention. I think it's just a particular call out for me. And the interesting was the practitioner of the art of worming the secrets out. And again, the word spy comes to mind. This one of the things that they do very well, or at least they want to, is become the friend. Interact, allow people to feel soft and warm, so they can share all the good heavy stuff that probably shouldn't be shared. The next one, my note is this: how slightly competing with Law 2, but I think it's more than applicable here. So yeah, this one kind of competed with 2, and I found this a little bit across the board with this law 15. So I'll just quickly go back. Law 15 was in relation to crushing your enemy totally. But if I go back to Law 2, Law 2 is all about never put too much trust in friends and learning how to use enemies. So that was just a call out for me that some of the laws were like, learn how to use your enemies. Another law was crush your enemies. There was a little bit of competition. Now, each one had its own applicability. And again, given that Robert Greene uses reversals, I could see how the other one could map. But it just made me call out and be like, also be aware that in some of these books, some of them might not be applicable or always applicable. It's not a mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. Not in this book. Law 16, I would note down the value through scarcity. Yes, but too much absence or not being connected is an unavoidable gap. This, I guess, talked about in reverse a little bit, but this law is use absence to increase respect and honor. And I just kind of called it out to myself. Yes, but if you're too far, if you go away for too long, it kind of rejects it as well. Case in point with the mere mortals, one of the things that this particular law talks about is, maybe absence, do one a month or one every 2 months in terms of podcasting, and people will be wondering where we are. Yes, but if we're not there present enough, you're just going to forget about it altogether. Perhaps if you were a very, very top level already individual, then maybe doing that encourages people to be like, what's going on? I want to learn out more. So very, very dependent. This one here, how to transcend a mere mortal in Law 16. So again, this is an interesting one to talk about. I'll go fairly quickly through here. So, Deloises ruled for 53 years, extended the Median Empire, and established the foundation for what would later be the Persian Empire under his great-great-grandson Cyrus. During Delosi's reign, the people's respect for him gradually turned into a form of worship. He was not a mere mortal, they believed, but the son of a god. There you go, Immortal Lights. That's the evolution into the son of a god. I just like the particular call out of how to evolve, how to transcend beyond the mere mortal. All you have to do is, reign for 53 years and basically transform your entire civilization. That's all. That's all you need to do. Next one, interesting story about the pairing of Isabella. This is a very, very long piece that I wrote down here, and I'm not gonna read it all because it's literally like an entire page. And this is interesting about the painting of Isabella. It's talking about Duke Cosimo del Medici. He decided to immortalize the name and commission something for the main chapel. He had many great painters to choose from. He chose this individual who said, I'm going to do Michelangelo himself. He filled the chapels with his biblical scenes, but he would barely leave the chapel, worked on it 11 years, barely leaving it. He actually died before finishing it. And when people actually went in to go see it, there was a total lack of proportion in what he was actually putting through. And this law, which is Law 18, the reason why it's kind of called out is do not build a fortress is to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. So the fact of isolating yourself and not being connected to what's going on made it so that there was something that he created that actually in the end wasn't very good at all, purely by the isolation that he decided to do to beat someone else. This one, I put out some fantastic quotes and the era, but pride in sticking to what you think is right. So what do I mean by that, or what was the call out here that I've put down? This law, which the one I'm talking about is Law 22, is use the surrender tactic, transform weakness into power. And in this one, this is all around the, Melos or the Melians. Basically, the Melians had the Athenians were coming over. So the Melians responded to this, denied the notion of fair play. Athenians said that those in power determined what was fair and what was not. So Athenians, big power, they were like, look, we tell you what's going on. The Melians didn't budge. Sparta, they insisted, would come in the defense. Athenians countered the Spartans were conservative, practical people. The Melians were talking to them and saying, do not be led astray by a false sense of honor. Long story short, They basically just aggravated the Athenians enough, and they could have gotten away with it, if they kind of surrendered or talk about it through. But the Athenians invaded Melos. They fought nobly. The Spartans didn't come, and basically only a handful of millions survived. So, um, you know, yes, there is pride, but sticking to it obviously brings some damage to it as well. You need to be aware that's going to happen. Sometimes you got to stick to your guns, right? If you believe in something so strongly, you're going to basically die by it, as millions mostly did. This one, I'll note that the intro quote in this piece is a reminder that focus inherently beats intensity. And so I'll read you the quote from this one, because it's concentrate your forces, conserve your forces and energies by keeping them concentrated at the strongest point. And again, just a clear reminder, sometimes you need to put in, we only have so much energy that we can expose or put forward towards something. Sometimes we've got to go heavier at that one particular thing and do the very best that we can. This sort of statement, the next one here, is and will continue to be true. The statement that I've noted down here is, the world is plagued by a greater and greater division within countries, political groups, families, and even individuals. We're all in a state of total distraction and diffusion, hardly able to keep our minds in one direction before we are pulled in 1,000 others. The modern world's level of conflict is higher than ever, and we have internalized it in our own lives. As true as it was in 1998, as it is in 2025, as it will continue to be 2030 and beyond. Be aware of it. The world pulls you in different ways. Be focused. The note here I put here is, no, this still allows everyone to be totally well, but shift you must. What I mean by this. So this is in a law, and there's a slightly different way that he breaks down. So this is in playing the perfect chord here. After your style and language according to the person you are dealing with. Absolutely. I do this naturally, just altering my style. I remember this when I used to train at the gym with a couple of island boys, and I'd start to shift and change and speak a little bit more in their way. And then when I interact with others, it slightly changes the style and the language, but not the way that I might show respect, right? So there's two different things. So altering your style and language, I think, is a good thing. So you can assimilate with the individual or the group, but not the respect that you give to them. But then the other one here is never be the bearer of bad news. And here I made a note of that. I totally disagree, where, the call out is, the king kills a messenger who brings bad news is cliche, but true. You must struggle and lie and cheat to be sure that you give it someone else, to a colleague, or never you. I completely disagree. I think, yes, you can find some power to that. Ultimately, though, I think that's going to be more of a rot that is going to be a success for you. So that's my little call out there on that particular one. Next one is the very, very strong sentiment of, I think the premise isn't even sure or commit. Enter action with boldness. Look, easier said than not for Law 28. Enter action with boldness. If you're unsure of a course of action, do not attempt it. Your doubts and hesitations will infect your execution. Timidity is dangerous. So look, enter action, whatever you do, be bold, be brave. Even if you're not going to succeed, better to try and go in there with the mindset that you're going to do it or get it right. Law 31, I made a note that this is definitive some next levels with mind game for true reverse psychology. This is control the options, get others to play with the cards that you deal. This is full, the psychology of it, the manipulation of controlling the options, get other people in the stories, and some of these are so brutal but true, of getting others to do the things that you want without them even knowing. Brutal. Law 31, big one. This next one was recommend with intent and plan. And this is of color the choices. So coloring the choices, this particular law was talking about, again, there's the control the options one, or just coloring the choices of what you want someone to do, and influencing by way of, well, you got two options, and this one, this one seems, well, this guy that maybe he really admires, here's the sort of stuff that this person would do, and this other one, again, coloring it so that while you might be stating the facts, it's colored by the influence of the context, the human psychology of someone. So again, being aware of that or how it applies is a big thing. The next little note that I've gotten here is, and again, this changes once again in the visual. It's a quote again by Baltasar Gracian. I'll leave it as a quote and we'll go to the next one. But this was, never lose your self-respect nor be too familiar with yourself when you are alone. Let your integrity itself be your own standard of rectitude, and be more indebted to the severity of your own judgment of yourself than to all external precepts. Desist from unseemly conduct rather out of respect for your own virtue than for the structures of external authority. Come to hold yourself in awe, and you will have no need of Seneca's imaginary tutor. Damn. Damn. Never lose your self-respect, team. Never lose your self-respect in Immortal Lights. Law 35, I put this that it reminds me the power is also the distance between thinking and acting, which is something that Tom Billy talks about. Master the art of timing. Never seem to be in a hurry. Hurrying betrays a lack of control of yourself and over time. Yeah, it's just a reminder of also power. The definition of power can also be how quickly can you go from what you think to the execution to the doing. Little note here for the next one. The 3 time principles was brilliant, especially end time. So in what law is this? Law 35, which is Master the Art of Timing. He talked about 3 different times. I'll call them out. It's the long time, force time, and end time. And just the way that it was described or how it applies. So the end time is you can play the game with the utmost artistry, waiting patiently, but at the very end for the right moment to act, putting your competitors off their form by messing with the timing, but it won't mean a thing unless you know how to finish. So the different times and its applicability, but the end time was all about, hey, when it comes to game time, when you're right at the end and you got to make it work, fuck, you better make it work. Law 38, this again clashes with Law 6, but rather than be annoyed, there's more variables, and Law 38 is think as you like, but behave like others. So again, very, very opposing to the one where it's like, you want to stand out, right? So again, just calling that out. View this book, there's some laws that compete against each other. The next one down here, it's it sure does. Ego gets in the way, and my little note here is just around Halliwell launching a career as an artist, even arranging for a gallery to show his work. There was this big, kind of like a sad story where it was a couple. One of them started outshining the other one, and in the end, one of them took the other one's life and killed himself as well, because the other one was just becoming too popular and they weren't. So ego gets in the way, and it gets in the way in very, very extreme manners. That was a very sad story in that particular read. This little note here, which is appearances in consequence, not of the reality. Of all the disorders of the souls, envy is the only one no one confesses to. That's very, very true in that, no one really talks about it. When you're envious, do you really tell anybody that you're envious? Not really. Maybe jealous, but envious, that's a hard one. That's something that's like, again, deep in the soul. You feel it, but you don't talk about it. And the last note that I've got here, which is Law 48, the very last one, and I put here, fits all the reverse comments in the book, be flexible. There's assume formlessness. Accept the fact that nothing is certain and no law is fixed. And I think that's a perfect way to end it, because the 48 laws of power, yeah, as you talked about, there's some that clashed in there, there's some that were different, but they're not all absolutely permanent in stone. They're all relatively flexible in their ways of the applicability of how you use it, how others see it. A lot of learnings in there. Look, if you've read this book, if you have any other learnings or call outs for me, let me know. I know there was just basically a lot of quotes and summaries and notes that I just took away from there. Hope some of them you read and go, yeah, either it makes you want to read it, or you go, hey, there's a reflection to something that I'm doing right now. Whichever way it may be, let me know. Me on Mortal Lights. I'm always open for comments and interactions. Go to our Discord, go to the website, send us through a message, subscribe, like, Instagrams, all the good stuff. I'll leave it there for now. Me Immortalized. Thank you for being in the journey with us. Be well. Bye now.